Jimi Hendrix was a music legend. When he died, was it an accident, suicide, or murder?
Hey, Joe, where you going with that gun of yours?
This morning, Noel Redding talks about the Experience ripoff and the death of Jimi Hendrix. The truth behind the Experience on 1FM this morning. Noel Redding joined the Jimi Hendrix Experience almost by accident, really. He'd applied to join Eric Burdon's Animals, managed by Chas Chandler, legendary figure, who'd then taken Jimi Hendrix, newly arrived from America, under his wing.
I danced at an ad in the Melody Maker. I was a guitar player for Eric Burdon and his new Animals. He's just getting that band together. And I sort of conned my way into the audition, you know, little young bloke from Kent with a guitar. And I played a couple of things with Eric, and usual things, sit outside and wait for a bit. So I was sort of sitting there, and Chas came up to me, and he was like, I was only 20 years old, and this is like a star who I've seen on television, and we didn't have a television then. And said, can you play bass? And I said, no. So he said, I'm serious. He said, well, give it a go. So I said, well, I'll give it a go. I'll give anything a go. So I was handed the bass guitar, and we basically just played a couple of backing tracks with no vocals or anything, and Hendrix was just say it's in C, and it goes to a G, and there's a D, and an A, and an E. So we went through a couple of things briefly, and sort of Hendrix suggested, let's go down the pub. So we went down the pub, and he had his first pint of bitter, which he liked, and we basically discussed music. He was asking about the English scene, and I was asking about the American scene. And then he said to me, would you like to join my group? And I said, what group? So he said, well, we're putting a group together. So I said, well, why not? You know, I wasn't doing anything. And went back down to the audition place, and Chas and Jimmy had a little chat in the corner, and then they said, are you interested? And I said, yeah. I'd come up from Kent that day on the train. I'd had to borrow the money. So I said to Chas, right, I'll come back tomorrow if you give me 10 bob. That's true. It's true, because that could get me back and down up to Kent and back. So I was then part of the group, having played bass for 6 minutes.
See the kind of world we're talking about. We're talking about the 1960s with Noel Redding, and the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and the book, which is Are You Experienced, is just a dream read for anybody who's in the business, anybody who wants to get into the business, on how you can get ripped off and the mistakes you can make. However, back in the 60s, when they started, the Experience soon gained the reputation of being the wild men of rock and roll.
Yeah, but we weren't really.
Weren't you?
No, we weren't. No.
You weren't drug-taking animals?
There's the occasional reefer flying about, and a few pills here and there, but we weren't silly.
When did you start to realise exactly what you were into financially, because you're very aware of that?
Oh, yeah. On the spring '67, we were playing in Germany. We were doing a German tour, and I suddenly found out we were earning £400 a night. I think the road manager made a mistake and told me. So I had a meeting with the group, and I said, look, if we're getting £400 a night, and you're doing 8 gigs, that adds up to this, that, and so. And we were getting £20 a week or £25 a week at that point. And flying was cheap then, and hotels were cheap. We'd double up in hotels. So on behalf of the group, I wrote a letter to the management saying, dear sound manager, I found out we're earning this much, and we feel we got a raw deal, and we'd like to part company because we aren't getting our monies. We had a meeting with the management, and we all given £200 each, I think.
Just like that?
Yeah, because in those days, £200 was a lot of money. And so from then on, it was supposed to be 25, on any monies. But what used to happen, when we were on the roads, we used to just sort of say, have you got $200 or something? And because we were told that, don't worry, lads, all the money's going to Nassau for tax purposes, and you'll get it all, and don't worry, lads. And we trusted them all.
Did you get the money?
No.
In the last few years, have you seen the money?
No, nothing.
Have you ever had any money?
No. I wrote 2 songs, I get me publishing. That's about maybe £1,000 a year.
We're talking with Noel Redding of the Jimi Hendrix Experience about the book Are You Experienced? And reading the book, it's quite extraordinary. The band seems to have worked incredibly hard, night after night.
I was looking at the schedule yesterday. There was one schedule on an American tour, and I got tired looking at it.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of, we might get 1 day off in a month, But on that one day, we'd probably be travelling somewhere.
How was Hendrix coping with you at that time? Because he wasn't well, was he?
Nah. Well, myself and him got on very well. But we were just working too hard. It's like when he freaked out in Sweden, you know. That's frustration, I'd say.
Frustration at what, Noel?
I just think he wanted to get some anger out of himself and started smashing up the room.
What was he angry about?
I don't know. I don't know at all. But
you had that time on Lulu's show.
Oh yeah. But
which is very funny.
It's hilarious. What did we do? We did Voodoo Child, and we were supposed to do Hey Joe, and Lulu was going to come up and sing it with us. And then I think
weird thought.
I know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't know, Jimmy and the boys won in a big American magazine called Billboard, the group of the year, and they're going to sing for you now the song that absolutely made them in this country. And I love to hear them sing it. Hey Joe.
We'd like to stop playing this rubbish and dedicate a song to the Cream, regardless of what kind of group they might be in. We'd like to dedicate it to Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, and Jack Bruce.
And you should see the director. And actually, at some point, Hendrix says, we're going to get banned from the BBC.
Did you?
No.
It's very, I mean, looking at it now, it's great
hilarious.
because it's very natural.
It
in
is.
a rather cloth-eared show.
True. Oh, well, that's what we thought. We thought we livened it up a bit.
I think it was good days, too. Noel Redding was obviously very close to Jimi Hendrix, and he's thought long and hard about the nature of his death. He's also discussed the death in Are You Experienced? And he's considered suicide, accident, and murder.
I knocked out the suicide one because a couple of days before he'd been on to Chaz about going back to Chaz as his manager and producer, because Jimmy had tried to do a lot of work himself, and I think he'd realised that he does need a producer. And he'd spoke to Chaz, and Chaz had said, right, you go to New York and get your tapes, come back to London, we go in the studio. And we'll start working on them, we'll see what is good, what is bad. So that was a positive outlook, so I don't think he committed suicide. Then the other one, the murder one, because I met some guy in Italy about 4 years ago. He could have been talking rubbish, I don't know. But he said that some guy had been sent from France to get Hendrix.
Why?
Hitman. I don't know. Maybe his product at that point had deteriorated. He was being hard to handle. He wasn't producing the goods. And then this... the night of his death, when his girlfriend drove him to some flat and said, quote, he said, come back in about an hour, there's people here you won't like. And he went to this flat, and I gather he took some various things, and supposedly he snorted something. But I don't know, I wasn't there. This is only from hearsay.
Right.
And then he goes back and he takes 9 downers with wine, which is very dangerous. And then she wakes up. He's been sick in his sleep. She should have taken him into the toilet or put him on his left-hand side, which is logical. And then she goes to buy cigarettes.
Which theory do you actually come down on?
I reckon it was an accident, personally. But I think it was the way he was handled also in the ambulance, because I gather he was put upright.
Yeah.
At which point he started being sick and it suffocated him.
The Hendrix Experience. And Hey Joe, it's 3.5 minutes away from 11. We're talking with Noel Redding. Noel Redding is here and alive 20 years on. He's lost his wife in the last 3 months in a tragic car accident. He's had a hell of a life. He's now living in Ireland, and I suppose the question's got to be, is he well off and does he need to work?
If I was getting my royalties, I wouldn't have to work ever again.
Do you have to work now?
Yeah, I have to work to survive.
Will you go to the courts on this?
No, because in the early 70s, after Hendrix's death, I attempted to sue the estate of Hendrix for my royalties. What little money I had all went out, because, as you know, if you've ever tried to sue a lawyer, especially American lawyers, and that sort of bled that lot of money then, and I got a pitiful settlement. But what I did with that, I bought an old house in Ireland,
Yeah.
which I think was a very sensible thing to do because I still got it. And I went very skint for a while, and then I started working again. I had a band in 74, 75, 76, Clonakilty Cowboys with Eric Bell. Do you remember him from
Yeah.
Dizzy? Yeah. And we had some management in London, and then the same thing happened. They found the management had taken $316,000 from RCA, and we got about 1,000 each or something. So I had another lawsuit with them in London in the High Court, and I had to put the deeds of my house into the bank to borrow the £500 for the lawyers, etc., etc. And it came to a settlement, and they were supposed to give the money back to RCA. They were supposed to give us the masters and pay us what was due, etc., etc. And that was in 1978. Nothing's happened since. They just didn't honour the settlement. If I want to do that, I'd have to take them back to court again.
Can't afford to.
No.
When you read Are You Experienced, you read a bitter book, but it ain't dead. I mean, you're not down and out, are you?
No.
Are you
No.
fighting back?
Oh, yeah. Very much so. But people say it sounds bitter. But if you'd lost £8 million, wouldn't you be bitter?
Noel Redding's book is Are You Experienced? And it's a required read, and I want to thank him for coming in. It's 2 minutes after 11.
Radio 1. I'm Eleanor